Well, we're live for the or recording live, I guess you could say, Jason, for the first episode of Morning Fuel. I've got my fuel here. It's my vintage Phillies All-Star game from 1996 when they were in Philadelphia, when the All-Star game was in Philly.
Very nice.
But yeah, it's always good to have fuel in the morning.
Indeed. I've got mine. It's from Blue Heaven down in Key West, one of my favorite restaurants. So,
all right. Very good.
Going.
Very good. So the other day you were saying to me something about laundry. The fun of being at home.
Yeah, the fun of being at home in quarantine is that you can achieve laundry nirvana, which is when the only dirty clothes in your house are the ones on your body. Everything else is put away, and it's just this beautiful feeling of like, oh my gosh, there's no more laundry to do right now.
Yeah.
So I've been achieving that pretty regularly.
I did everything that was in the hamper for the first time in probably a good 10 days. And I mean, the stack was like, I don't know that I've ever gone that long waiting to do the laundry. So all going well there. What have you learned? What are the 3 things you've learned while being in quarantine?
Yeah. So first and foremost, it's really hard to give yourself a haircut.
I know. Tell me about it. I messed it up and that was the end of it.
The next morning fuel with me on it might have that look for me. It just might be easier. It's really important to check in on people, your family, your coworkers. Just people are missing out on those social interactions that you would have had at the water cooler in the office. So check in on people, see how they're doing, ask them about how their day is going, what are they struggling with, and then third, be grateful. Be grateful for your health, be grateful for the ability to operate in the way that we do. So those are the 3 things. How about you? What have you learned?
No, and I agree with you. And a lot of the messaging and things I've been communicating have been about like, how can I help? What is, so it's like being available for people, I think is really important. I think everybody feels like they're all in it together during this time. And so how can we help each other out? And it's actually what kind of like spurred the need, I guess, of this, this new show or whatever we want to call it, this series that I'm going to start putting together. So it is really about trying to help and being helpful. It's funny about, the other day I was kind of hanging out on LinkedIn as I do. And I don't know if that just makes me a nerd or whatever, but and somebody had posted like, not every meeting needs to be a Zoom meeting. And someone else said, amen, and I'm thinking to myself, the need for human contact is real. And I think people are more so than ever just wanting to be able to see one another. I think you and I, if we've been talking, we could have these discussions by phone, but it's just much nicer to kind of look at you while we're having the conversation. So anyway, it's good to have you here, Jason Bain, technology executive and agile coach and world-class great guy, introduced by a mutual friend of ours in the last several months, and we've been talking about things around agile and certainly as and being nimble in this environment of where things are always changing. So just want to say hi to Jason, and you've gotten to know him a little bit on his laundry. But we're going to dive into some topics, at least the topic of navigating this crisis, leveraging Agile. So, your thoughts on just what you've been seeing in day to day and kind of business life as you've been talking to other people as well.
Sure.
What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me. This is your inaugural episode. I'm very honored to be part of that. So, thank you very much for reaching out and having this conversation. I think it's very topical. A lot of companies are working really, really hard right now to get business done, to deliver value to their clients, to, get things done. And Agile has always been a perfect solution for delivering value early in small increments and getting feedback. And I feel like it's even more critical than it has ever been to leverage Agile practices to figure out what is really truly important. What do you really need to just hyper focus in on get it done and move on to the next thing, but also how do you incorporate all that feedback? Because it's just a big giant loop. You work on things, you get them delivered, you get the feedback that goes back into your backlog, and we've got some graphics and things that go into that in more detail. So really looking forward to the conversation and explaining kind of some of the ideas that you and I have been bouncing off of each other.
Yeah, and we talked about the whole idea that everything seems to be changing by the day. I mean, I think the pace of business and the pace of the world is typically pretty quick, but with updates with the virus and the health crisis, and then the fallout from that being the economic crisis, everything seems to be changing by the day, and then certainly by the week. And I guess as we were talking about thinking about methodologies and ways businesses can be nimble, Agile really lends itself to that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a well-proven methodology. It works for software development, which is where it really had its genesis and its roots. But really, anything that you're working on that has a process to it, has steps that you need to go through. You need to engage various team members. You need to get everybody onto the same page. It lends itself really well to a wide variety of things. My kids and I will use it for the weekend chores. I'll put just a bunch of white, little tasks on the whiteboard, and the kids will pick them up and move them across, and it really helps because they're not, hey Dad, I'm done. What do I do next? They know to go to the board. And a couple other of my colleagues in this field, they do the same thing. I've seen a bunch of blog posts from friends of mine that are doing this. It helps keep things sane at home and at work.
Yeah. So you're having scrum meetings in the mornings with your kids?
Only on Saturdays and Sundays, just to get the chores done. Monday through Friday, we got too much other stuff to do.
Yeah, that's good. So we talked about the blog post that we wrote, and we'd hope either you'd read it already, or you're reading it after this. But the idea, you had mentioned that with software development, Agile comes about by way of software development, and certainly more and more it's even being just used in product development, and software as a product, but then other products as well, and trying to get, we'll talk about minimal viable products and things like that. But one of the things we've been talking about is how do you think about your business as a product? And by that, I mean the internal workings of a business. And if HR and finance and sales and marketing, which we'll talk more about given the natural, how I gravitate to marketing and sales, and customer experience and customer service. You and I were talking about the other day about, as we were getting ready for this, thinking about how does thinking about your internal business, the operations within a business as products, and the need to improve and kind of be iterative, especially we talk about being nimble right now. So talk a little bit about that. And then as we were thinking about it, and then also just one other thing I want to make sure we cover is, like, people are not together any longer. So we got to touch on a little bit of the, how do you do this in a remote setting, as we're doing today? But maybe just talk a little bit about that, because getting people together may be a little bit more challenging, albeit now we're doing it by Zoom and other calls. So just maybe there's some tools and things you've deployed in your world.
Yeah, definitely. So, first and foremost, you got to come up with a list of things to do, right? So you've got the ideas, you need to get those, captured, you need to write them down, and then you need to think about, from the standpoint of a business owner or a department head, which things do you really want first? How do you prioritize that backlog, that body of work? And how do you make the definition of what you want as clear as possible? And you really have to spend even extra time at it, because you don't have the luxury that we had when we were all in the office together. And I could just really quickly turn to the right and ask somebody, did you mean this to be, a light shade of blue or a dark shade of blue? Right. I mean, that kind of thing is kind of flippant, but there could be major items that teams could go way too far on with the wrong context. So you've got to set that context within the backlog items that you create, and you've got to continuously reinforce that through engagement with the team. So I think a couple of things, as your team is working on these things, and as you're kind of jumping forward ahead a little bit here, but keeping a Zoom session open for a long period of time so that it's easier for people to just, hey, Bob, light blue or dark blue, right?
Yeah,
Like having that ability is really easy. People can turn their cameras off and turn their audio off so you don't hear the dogs barking or the kids screaming. But, just having that channel open can be really helpful. Or other, instant messaging tools and things like that.
yeah.
Chat features and things. And a lot of companies already have these tools in place.
Slack.
But
Yeah, Slack. Yeah.
And to the point that you were making, right? Not everybody wants to be on a Zoom meeting, right? And we
Yeah,
have to acknowledge that, and everybody works a different way.
that's
And,
right.
so I think there's a little bit of truth to that. Like, how do you balance like what really truly needs to be kind of video on and what's really important? And I would say, as a product owner or as a business leader, having your video on and talking to your team about what it is you need done, pausing for questions, continuously asking if people understand what you're saying, have them read it back to you. It's just really, really critical and important because you're trying to get things done quickly. And the luxury that we really never had, but really don't have right now, is wasting time on things or going down the wrong path for too long. We've really got to get things done and get it done quickly.
Yeah, and that piece about staying connected and being, as leaders, just being present, I think is really important. And I think, even just in certain moments, certainly of turning the video camera on and looking folks in as much in the eye as you possibly can.
Right, where's the camera?
Right. What did I say? Is critical. So good. So we're gonna we'll take a quick break on Morning Fuel. And we're going to dive into what it could look like, what it looks like leveraging Agile in a marketing and sales integration model. So we'll be right back after this.
Awesome. Thanks.
You were born with it. It's always been inside you. The passion, the drive, the spirit to create something bigger than yourself. You're on a course. Turning your dream into a company that will change an industry and make a positive contribution to the community you serve. At the Rocket Factory, your mission is our mission, to help you and your team take that next step, whatever it may be. Proven strategic marketing advice, rooted in measurable performance that moves your high-growth organization forward, delivered in a whole new way. With unmatched experience spanning the dawn of our digital age to the data-driven here and now, we provide fuel to help your ideas take flight.
All right, we're back on Morning Fuel. I'm here with Jason Bain, technology executive and Agile connoisseur, all things Agile expert, Agile coach. And has turned out to be a great partner of mine as we're talking a lot about, integrating sales and marketing and how do you bring it into a technology environment and how do you think about internal processes, even just as products and for improvement. And as you all may have seen, the blog post that's written on Mission Log within the Rocket Factory talks about this topic. And then, of course, the purpose of this video portion of the series is to dive into a particular topic. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about marketing and sales and the importance of integrating marketing and sales and what does that mean for the larger organization. And I'm going to fumble around here a little bit on sharing out my screen, but this is a little bit about how we think. Actually, hang on. It's always fun, staring at the computer while you're trying to navigate on Zoom. So this is the way the Rocket Factory thinks about marketing and sales, and really thinking about an entire organization and really being enabled by technology. So, Jason, does my cursor show up?
Absolutely.
Okay, so when we talk about a fully integrated sales and marketing organization, it really means, as you think about your brand and you're building out brand channels like, your brand equity around product and service, and really what people think about you when you're not in the room. It's okay. How do you work on that while then developing communication channels to communicate your brand value, how do you then develop demand? And showing up in demand comes in the form of lead generation. It also may come in the form of like sales conversion, but lead gen turns into conversion of like a form being submitted on your website, or this could be, in an e-commerce funnel. We talk about funnels of the way people shop, but within an e-commerce environment, this could be someone browsing your website and then ultimately trying to convert the sale. And then, of course, trying to figure out how you're going to drive retention. And all of it needs technology. One without the other doesn't work. I think organizations try. It's my philosophy that you need to have, when you're really humming along at a good clip, having these three things glued together when the entire organization is running efficiently. And speaking of efficiency, that's what drives efficiency. And so it's the idea that to truly have marketing be accountable with sales, which is kind of like the modern way of going to market and being about efficiency and proper ROI and doing things profitably. Sales and marketing have to be joined at the hip, and technology enables them to do that when they're not in the room together. And so, as you and I were talking about a specific example of how that might look, and it's like one example of many, many things, we talked about a lead coming in from Google. And I will share out a diagram that is on the website. And I think, Jason, we're going to do a little chalk talk as we continue here.
And like you said, we're using some tools that we don't use every single day. So
yeah, so we'll fumble. We're going to fumble through a little here. Yeah. But the idea is that, let's say from a user, so one of your, a customer, whether you're in a B2B or a B2C environment, a customer is out on Google, they've already been searching, they've become aware of who you are. So from a marketing standpoint, you've established awareness and consideration. So they're aware of you and they will also consider you. But then they start searching for you in Google because and so they're kind of in market ready to buy, but they need to search. And they click on an ad on Google and they come into your website. And within the website, they click to submit a form. They see some information, they're really excited, but they want to get that brochure, or they want to get more information about your product or service, whatever you're offering. And that form gets submitted to your organization from your website. And I'll take it through for a second, and then I'll stop talking and let you go, Jason, on kind of how this kind of fits into the Agile methodology. That lead then has to go over to sales. And so marketing brought the lead in, sales is going to work the lead, and that business will get won or lost, in a certain period of time. Some sales cycles, of course, are very long. Others are a bit shorter, but that something will happen with that lead, and it'll get worked in a process that's within your own internal sales process. Ultimately, if that converts into a sale, you're trying to track that sale back to that Google click. And so there's all those pieces and parts, both think about everything. It's like not only the technology piece of connecting the Google ad to your website analytics, to your the lead form that caught the lead, to the lead management system or your CRM system that's tracking that through your sales organization, and then back to attributing it back to that Google click. There's a lot in there, and then there's just not to get this will be off topic, but it goes to the broader need from a cultural perspective. How does sales and marketing tie together and work together more? And that's where, again, sales and marketing touches the entire organization, because everyone's got to be working together if you truly want to be fully integrated and maximize efficiency. So taking that Google click all the way into, from Google to site to form to submitted to worked, and the lead getting worked and that business won or lost. what are the ways you'd be thinking about it now if you were teasing that apart within an agile environment, Jason?
Yeah, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to explain like how getting that value in early and often and iterating on it is really critical, because you're going to learn things as you go. So
Yep.
what we're going to do is we're going to say these first couple of items here are the Google ad click. Okay. So it's these were the items that were required. That was your first feature. Each one of these items, 1, 2, 3, and 4 here are, just different user stories that map back to that feature. As you release those features, right? You first, to kind of step back, you had your whole big prioritized backlog of items. You had your ad click, your website traffic, your lead form submission, your CRM, lead management system work, sales work in the lead, business won or lost. You're going to get feedback. There's going to be different bits of features or full features that need to be developed as you go. So like using that example, we said, hey, this Google ad click, that was the first feature that we wanted to develop. Okay, and so when we did that, we learned that user story 1, it was a winner. It's got a little smiley face by it. And user 3, it was a winner as well. It really gave us a lot of insight and gave us a lot of things. Items 2 and 4, maybe not so much, right? And any kind of work has got downstream dependencies. And so some of those dependencies, like item 1 was tied to item 7, and item 3 was tied to item number 12 in our backlog. If you were doing this in a normal waterfall project, you wouldn't be able to pull 12 in for who knows how long, right? It could be weeks, months, who knows, right?
And just real quick, explain waterfall for those that don't understand waterfall, and just give a little bit more about it. And agile is there's a link on the blog post to go deeper on what a simplified version of what agile is, but maybe just real quick about waterfall.
Waterfall is a traditional project management methodology. It's been around for years. There's a ton of applicability for it in a lot of different environments and a lot of different things. When you've got really, really, just massively technical things that need to be laid out and planned out, a lot of people will pick a waterfall methodology for that. Me personally, I've been an Agile advocate since 2004. I can figure out a way to really apply Agile leveraging either Scrum and Kanban. Those are the two kind of major flavors. Or if you have something really massive, a larger framework tool like SAFe or Scrum at Scale are a couple of different Agile methodologies that you can leverage for getting very complex things done. But waterfall is still in use, is still very applicable. There's a lot of companies that just prefer that. They've been using it for years. I'm not the kind of person that's like, oh no, you have to do it the Agile way, right? Hey, let's take what you're doing. Let's figure out what's working. Let's figure out what isn't. And those things that aren't working, let's figure out what we can do together to move value across the finish line faster.
And the idea around waterfall is that you wouldn't release something until, like, if we would probably work the entire flow from click to sales, working it and tying it to the CRM system or the lead management system and back to like Google paid search.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't release that until it was all ready to go together.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't be getting any feedback as you go, right? So you wouldn't be able to have that example of being able to say, hey, item 3 that was tied to stories in our backlog in 12, we need to do that in the next sprint. The sprint is, little time boxes of work that you do, and the team just continuously works those. So as a product owner, you're working on these product backlog items. I keep trying to draw on the other screen. And these are your features that you come up with that you prioritize for the team. You break those down into user stories, and you can pull things from the backlog as a product owner that you then feed into the beginning of the sprint. Some of the rules of Scrum and some of the rules of just Agile in general are give the team the focus, give them all the information, and let them do their work. Continue to give them context on what they're working on, but don't introduce new items within the sprint. So if I'm saying a sprint is a 2-week time box, and I've said I want items 5, 6, 7, and 8 to be delivered, or actually 12 in this example, then let them work on those. Don't start trying to introduce items 13, 14, 15, and so on as they're working in that 2-week sprint. Now, you can reprioritize and shuffle the backlog that the team's not working on to your heart's content
Yeah.
as you get that feedback. And that's the beauty of it, right? Is you can say, hey, all I need to do is wait 2 weeks until this value is out. I check that feedback. I check what's winning, what's losing, and I can move things around so that the team, when they're ready to pick up new work and pull new work into their system, the right things are getting delivered at the right time.
So in an agile environment, what that could look like would be, we want to tie together to start out. We just want to get some value by understanding the Google paid search, click into the website and have some analytics flowing through Google Analytics. And that might be 2 weeks worth of work to get that all done, to build that. And it may not be the way that Google's integrated, but just as an example, or even getting it to the form and being able to see the submission and tracking the submission to Google. You might not be able to track that sale to Google, but you could track the submission to Google.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And that's where we would get the value of it faster than if we did waterfall, for example, which we'd be waiting for.
Correct. Yep.
Or
you may not even get that insight until after everything else was delivered, and then you need to spawn up a new project
to fix
deliver that analytics piece, right? I mean,
or to fix, right?
Yep.
Which you might be months down the line in order to do that. And that's what we're talking about, being nimble. Is that if you wait and you're not getting that, and now the business climate is changing by the day or by the week, which we acknowledge early on. We might launch and the world has changed. Which if you just look 2 weeks back from where we are today, it's changed. So
before I was an agile practitioner, I was a software developer, and I was working at a major financial institution here in Richmond.
yeah.
I had spent many, many months working on this one project that was just going to make all this money. It was going to deliver a new feature that was going to just create all this business, but it was taking us a long time to deliver in a waterfall method. About 3 weeks before we went live, the competitors came out with the same feature before us. They beat us to market. And then we got to spend the next 3 months backing all of our code out of the code base and retesting and, going through that whole, so
Yeah.
we didn't get the little feature, but then we started applying Agile, and I was part of a team that they were, in the waterfall context, they had estimated the project to be an 18-month effort. We got the lead developer and the business requester together in a room, and the lead developer was like, oh, that's what you want? I can do that in 2 weeks. And so they did that, and within that first 2-week sprint that they had, they funded the rest of the project from all the money that they were making off that. So there's a lot of people who push back against Agile because it doesn't figure everything out up front. And I can understand that's a need. But you typically don't really understand everything up front, no matter how much time you spend. It's better to get into market, learn, and respond.
Of those that I've worked with and for as a consultant or full time, there's almost a certain comfort in doing things in waterfall, and it gets a little uncomfortable. What do you mean I'm not going to get everything I want? As if I'm the business person, right, and I'm working with IT or I'm working with a product development group, what do you mean I'm not going to get everything I want in for another couple months? And then, quickly you could be explained, well, you normally wouldn't if you're in waterfall. But in Agile, I'm going to at least give you some value. We're going to launch something in 2 weeks, and it's going to be delivering something. You're going to get some learning right away. And then it allows you to adjust on the fly. And that was, again, the other part of it is being able to react to the market, be able to react to competition or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, and the advent of cloud technology and DevOps and teams being able to release to production rapidly. I mean, the world just continues to shift and change. And, it's a lot of those systems and a lot of those technologies have really, support an agile methodology, require an agile methodology, kind of, really enable true agility, because you don't have all of the dependencies between 50 different systems. You can, componentize and, have these microservice architectures and things that just really help you enable true speed and agility.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other parting thoughts, one of the things for me also was thinking about brand value, going back to brand for a second, and thinking about if I can deliver things fast to my customers, then and be able to deliver value to them and put it in front of them faster. It involves them in a little bit in the process of product development, because you're getting feedback from them. You're being, as long as you have some kind of method for them to give you feedback, and you're communicating effectively that this is what you're doing. You're basically adding value now, versus waiting months, for that customer base. And so for them, it's also, you build up brand equity with those customers. And so any other thoughts though about that?
Yeah, I was going to say customers and team members.
Yes.
Don't ignore the fact that your team worked really hard on delivering this feature. Go explain to them what this did for your business. Like when a product owner does that with the team that I'm part of, man, that team is just like, okay, great. What's next? Give us the next thing. It is so intrinsically rewarding to know what you're building and know that it is driving value into the organization, and everybody in the organization wants that feedback. They want to know. So definitely your customers, your shareholders, those are super important, right? If you don't make money, we don't have jobs. If we don't have jobs, we can't pay the bills, right? I mean, that's all important. But an engaged team that really understands what it is you're going after, you can be unstoppable.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I think a really great topic, and certainly one that's very timely right now, given the fact that we're in the midst of this, the pandemic, and everyone's trying to find their way a bit. And I'd say, for either Jason and I, reach out if there's some questions. Certainly through the Rocket Factory blog, you can send us a note. And if there's anything further we can help explain, we're certainly available to do that. And then as we get more along with Morning Fuel, and we add more topics, there'll be some more guests coming along. I certainly would welcome suggestions and other topics that are interested to you, or that are of interest to you. And so I'm always looking for feedback and things that we can do better, and as well as providing content that's relevant to you, and helping business get further along. Any other final parting words as our inaugural Morning Fuel comes to a close?
I just think that it's a scary time, but it's also exciting time. Right? I think a lot of business models are being turned on their heads. Change can be scary. It's really important to engage with people who've done this type of work before. If you're feeling stuck, if you feel like you need help, I think Todd and I both we're here available to help, and we're looking forward to meeting all of you, and hopefully we can do some great things together. Yeah.
Well, that's about it for Morning Fuel. We'll catch you next time. We're going to be probably every couple weeks. We'll have another session, and then of course just keep an eye on Mission Logs, our blog on the Rocket Factory. There's always content going up there. And then from the homepage, you can get to our Marketing Survival Guide, which is constantly being updated with new information as the economic and health crisis continues. For the Rocket Factory, for Morning Fuel, for Jason Bain, I'm Todd Feldman. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Todd. Talk to you soon.